And you're listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM here at Shippensburg University in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. The weather currently outside is 72 degrees and sunny. It is Friday, August 29th. And we welcome you back to this show. This is the second year that we have done this, and of course the third semester. And for our starting episode this week, we actually have a bit of a different situation. We're going to treat Luke Hillegass as our guest for the week. So, of course, Luke was on our show for the entire spring of 2025 semester, so he is back in the studio for it. And just a brief introduction for Luke, because it's been a bit. Luke Hillegass, he is the president of the Kappa Lambda chapter of Shippensburg University's Kappa Sigma fraternity, which is the largest social fraternity on campus. He previously served as Kappa Sigma's grand treasurer in the 2024-2025 academic year. And beyond Kappa Sigma, Luke is also the social media manager for Shippensburg University's men's hockey team. He is a senior studying business management, too. And Luke, first off, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. And thank you for joining us to begin this episode and kick off the 2025 fall semester on Greek Speak.
Yeah, thanks for, obviously, thanks for having me. I would be here anyway. But, definitely a little different than we would normally do it, but figured for the first one, why not go back to how this all started with me on the show. So
that's very much true. And of course, Andrew Mercier, he's with us along for the ride as well, per usual. So he'll be switching in later into the show. But Luke, first off, I guess the most important thing to talk about is, because it's been 4 months we've been in here, is how the summer go. How was your summer? How were things in your life? And how is it now being back on campus and back at it?
Yeah, so it was incredibly busy. For starters, I was working at the very minimum 40 hours a week. I'm a manager at a sports facility back at home, and this summer I ran all their summer camps. So it was definitely, that part was exhausting. But then, I go home and we start worrying about the fraternity and how we can start getting into gear and figure out, what are the things that we need to get done before the semester rolls around, making sure that everybody on our exec board is on the same page, and just, making sure that we're still making connections with the chapter at the same time. And then in July, me and Andrew and our vice president, Alex Staub, all went to Vegas for the Kappa Sigma Grand Conclave, which was, I'm sure we'll talk about that more later, but just as a general statement, it was super rewarding, and I think that I can speak for all three of us. We learned a lot, and it was a blast, definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for sure. And then I did get to go on a cruise about 2 weeks after that, so that was definitely relaxing, and, got to just relax for about a week, so that was nice. But then right back to work after that, and then got back to here, and we're getting straight to work. We're planning a lot of events and trying to hit the ground running, which I think that we have done more than that already, and we're going to keep doing so.
So where'd you go on your cruise? Where was that at?
So our first stop was the Caribbean. We went everywhere in the Caribbean, but we went to Puerto Rico first, I think. No, we went to Coco Cay. It's like Royal Caribbean's private island. And then we went over to Puerto Rico. And then the last stop was St. Martin.
Awesome. That's something I've never done before, and I want to try it. It's definitely an expensive endeavor, that's for sure. But I think it's well worth the trip. I'd imagine everybody's got the same review afterward, being out there basically within the tropics for days on end. But yeah, Grand Conclave, I really would be curious to find out about that, but I think the best person to talk about that with you is going to be Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately you guys got to share that. Our vice president, Alex, got to do it, and that's the first time Alex got to go on the trip too, I believe. Yeah. So really I imagine that was an outstanding experience overall. But I guess the big thing, of course, is you transition into president at the end of April, and we talked a lot about that at the end of last year's programming. How has that been? How has that been getting into the role? And, of course, now things really escalate now that you're back here. But how are those 3 months during the summer like, trying to build rapport with the exec board, trying to get yourself established in the position with everybody?
I'd be lying if I said it wasn't an adjustment for sure. But I think that me serving on exec board, especially in a role where I have to be vocal and, at times demand people to pay dues and that kind of stuff, it definitely made it a lot easier, but it's always going to be an adjustment. You know, you're going from just serving on exec board to running an entire fraternity, and it was at a point that we are not slowing down in any way. So it's definitely a lot of work. It's a lot. I have high ambitions and big goals for the fraternity, so it's not like I'm just kind of coasting through. We're all trying to get these systems in place to make sure that we have a successful year and successful generations to come after my time ends. So it's been a lot, but it's been already rewarding. And right now, I'm just focusing on coaching the rest of our exec board, making sure that they're ready to go with their chairs, and making sure that they're ready to go with their individual things, because my stuff is pretty much all planned out for now. Obviously, it'll pick back up. It's random when it picks back up. But now I'm just helping them get through all of their stuff because we have a lot coming up.
It seems to me, though, everything's running quite well because you guys, the five of you, have done an outstanding job this summer, seeming to keep operations going where necessary and everything that's happened there. But I'd say the one question I have is, you mentioned this earlier about how you were a manager. You were a manager this summer for your summer job. What was that experience like?
I mean, it's not for everybody, especially when my employees that I was managing are anywhere from, we have like a coach in training program, so you can be 13 and work there and just not get paid. So it can be anywhere from 13, and then my oldest employee was 26 years old, and he's older than me. So I'm dealing with super young employees, and then I'm also dealing with employees that are years older than me. So it definitely is challenging, but it is the best experience I could ever ask for. So, I mean, it went well, but we'll see what happens next summer and where I go with that. Yeah. But definitely rewarding, and the experience is unlike anything I could ever imagine.
Well, it teaches you a lot, I'm sure, as far as delegating things and getting people in line, even the disciplinary aspect of it, and when things go wrong, that's all involved in it. It sounds a bit different than the experience I had this summer, that's for sure. So I know Andrew kind of said it at the end of last year, so whenever he had Owen on for our final episode, but I was actually in Washington, D.C. this summer, completing an internship down there, and that, I can tell you folks, was a really remarkable experience. But I think, and this is kind of a segue into other things I want to talk about in this first episode, because just got to get reestablished as far as, again, reaffirming what the fundamentals of Greek life are all about. But I truly believe, of all the things that living in Washington, D.C. takes, I mean, there's a certain level of maturity. It's very fast paced. But one of the things about that city that I think is true is everybody warns you going in, and you know it while you're there and you feel it, is that city will eat you up and spit you out if you aren't ready for it. Whether it's the professional aspect, the social aspect, even the common sense aspect. I mean, there's a lot of things there that you got to be ready and you got to be developed with. And I think about all my experiences and everything that prepared me for the summer I had, and I can needlessly say, it was the best summer I had in my life. No offense, I would have loved to have been around the Kappa Sigma guys here, but it was still the best summer I've ever had. But one of the things that prepares you for is just the social nature of that city. You are amidst super young people. They're all in their low 20s. Everybody's got high goals and high ambitions. They're all very smart people, too. But beyond that, where I was living, it was a very unique situation because I was living in an organization where you had about 50-some people living in that residence. Everybody knew everybody, and there were a lot of times where you felt like the people you lived with, I mean, in many ways, you'd compare it to a fraternity. So that experience of like the friendships I was able to build this summer were just outstanding. But again, that goes into preparation. The preparation from that comes from my Greek experience, plain and simple. Because Greek life is very much a melting pot of sorts, because think about the people in our chapter. Mm-hmm. You got electrical and engineering, political science, psychology, right, all the rest. You got all these different majors, all these different backgrounds. Like, never in a million years would I know the people that I know and I'm close friends with if not for Greek life. The same goes down Washington, D.C. Even if everybody's got a political flair to them, you got people from Pennsylvania in my case, Tennessee, California, Florida, New York, Ireland. There were people from all across the world. Singapore. I met somebody from Singapore. But all that to be said, I guess the question I would have is, based on that premise alone, how do you anticipate this year going when it comes to, this is more of a recruitment lesson as well. We've taken pride in recruiting people from all sorts of different backgrounds and people you wouldn't think would be a part of Greek life, but we know would be successful with our organization. Mm-hmm. How do you look at that? Look this year, and this is also a question that Andrew, I hope, would answer as well, when it comes to Rush this fall and our overall goals 2025-26.
I mean, inclusion has always been everything for us. We are looking not necessarily, like you said, for whoever is wants to be in Greek life right away, but that we think could thrive in Greek life. And that's true across our entire chapter, because we rely a lot on coaching and membership development and getting these guys accustomed to our values and what we succeed with. So we do recruit a multitude of different backgrounds, like you said. Anybody that is willing to give us a shot, we are willing to give them a shot. So it doesn't really come down to, like, if somebody's coming to college thinking that they're going to be in Greek life. If they can give us a shot, we will develop them into what a Kappa Sigma should be.
And I think it's also another thing I want to talk about from the summer is I can say, working. A lot of people will describe it down there as this way, and it's probably true. Is Capitol Hill operates like a fraternity. It feels like you belong to a Greek organization while you're there. I mean, obviously, it's the most important legislative institution in the entire world, I'd argue. But one of the things that you learn down there is that there are people that Greek life is quite respected down there because a lot of people who are working in those positions, they were in Greek life at some point. And that's another lesson is the professional preparation for that. I mean, how do you emphasize that? Like, how do you plan on emphasizing that as a president when it comes down to the professionalism of our chapter?
Yeah, that is something that I even wasn't good at when I came in. And then as treasurer, I started to develop it more. And it is something that I preach every single day to our guys because it doesn't matter if you're a fraternity. We are still an organization, and we have a face, and we also have a vision. And our vision is, to put it bluntly, to dominate, and we can't do that unprofessionally. So, when we're talking to whether it be potential new members, whether it be parents of potential new members, whether it literally just be a faculty member on staff, everything's professional. When we are out in public, we are professional, and obviously you can't be professional all the time. But there's a time and a place for everything, and that's probably one of my biggest mantras at this point.
Right. The saying I would always use is to have couth. Yeah. Whenever you're in certain settings like that. But I read a study and it kind of ties into this as well. But it was from a few years ago. I saw this on Instagram. And I kind of looked into it today just to double check what it was all about. So, study came from Northeastern University. It was a study on Northeastern University, and they got 5.6% acceptance rate, so quite different from the thresholds here, and the culture you can imagine is going to be exceptionally different. But they looked at Greek life, and they looked at kind of how fraternities and sororities would operate, and they looked at the people that have been involved with them in the years and decades past. And one of the things they saw was that, and the way that they phrased it was human capital, which basically means your intelligence, your GPA, those types of measurements. GPA for people that were in Greek life was actually down by 0.25 compared to everybody else on campus who would not have been involved in Greek life. However, income had increased by 36%.
I saw
for
this.
Those that were, you saw this. Yeah. You saw that. What did you make of that?
You mean what did I make about the fraternity men?
Well, what do you think of that statistic? That's what trends that would indicate? Because I thought a lot of different things about that. I thought that's very much a lesson as far as what you're really in college for. But what thoughts do you come up with that whenever you see those types of numbers that, the GPA takes a big hit, but I mean, at the end of the day, your life earnings are going to be much higher.
I mean, that stat is confusing to me, to say the least. But if you're talking about how I think we might be talking about two separate statistics now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
But I did see one today that fraternity men with lower GPAs than other people have higher incomes in the rest of their life.
It must be a similar study at minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. That, in my opinion, all comes down to the networking, right?
Yes.
Because you're making connections for life whenever you join a fraternity or sorority. I'm sure that the statistic would apply to sororities as well. But yeah, it's all about networking. You meet so many people within a fraternity. I must have met 150, 200 Kappa Sigmas in Vegas, and half of them added me on LinkedIn. Like, that's so much networking in one place. And when I go to apply for jobs, like, I'm already set. I'm not saying that I have a job lined up or anything, but you just put yourself on such a bigger pedestal and platform by being in Greek life, because of all the connections you can form.
And I never realized how it is regarded quite well in the professional community, because everybody else they were in college at one point, like they saw Greek life even if they weren't in it themselves. But I kind of made the similar thought. It is the network, number one, but number two, it's the skills that you learn beyond the classroom. I of course I am the president of the Public Relations Student Society of America chapter here on campus. You're the president of this. What I can tell you is that logistics, organizational management, event planning, those types of things, you cannot learn that in the classroom. You learn by doing, and those are oftentimes, I've said it before on the show, those are the most testing moments in life, because everything's difficult. It feels like everybody's in your way to do what you want to just be able to do super easily. Mm-hmm. And that's the type of stuff that Greek life prepares you for. And I can tell you this, like, this is where my PR experience, being the PR chair here, yeah, you learn those skills in the classroom, but they don't mean anything until you actually apply it hands-on.
Exactly. Application is everything.
And that's going to be the next segue in. We'll take a quick pause here just to clarify. You're listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM to discuss all things Greek life with Rainey, Luke Hillegass, and Andrew Mercier here on WSYC 88.7 FM. And continuing that discussion, though, you're talking about those skills you learn and being able to apply them. So one of the things we got to do is that we have a big community service event coming up on September 6th. This is really exciting. Next week, our episode is going to be all about this, actually, because our Grand Scribe, Drew Williams, in my opinion, perhaps the most impressive person that I have ever met on this campus regarding just his social IQ, his intelligence, just his drive, his ambition. I'm floored by it. But he has helped organize this the event called Fun Run for Health, which is happening along the rail trail on Saturday, September 6th, beginning at 9 a.m. I believe the doors open, quote unquote, at 7:30 in the morning. But one of the things we got to do is we got to pitch that to media, quite literally. So we actually ran a press release, and that got distributed out to the Hagerstown Herald and a bunch of other outlets. And the Hagerstown Herald, they actually ran our story on August 13th. So it was a really cool thing to see that type of public promotion. But I guess, going into that discussion with Fun Run for Health, so just to preview that, and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but just so the community is aware, it is, again, September 6th, 9 to 2. It starts at 7:30, though, to show up. There is a registration. However, all proceeds for that will go to Washington County's Community Free Clinic, which supports thousands of uninsured individuals in Washington County, Maryland. So for that, they provide a variety of healthcare services, those essentials that those types of individuals would be in financial need to have. So being able to partner up with them for this event and the outreach that requires to make it a successful event is no small effort. But can you just talk a little bit about this, what we have coming up?
Yeah, so, I mean, you alluded towards it pretty well, but it is a Fun Run for Health community service event. It'll be a rail trail event. You can run 1 mile, 2 mile, or a 5K. All proceeds will benefit the free health clinic of Washington County. There will be live music. There will be a DJ. There will be food trucks. There will be prizes for winners. There will be places to donate. Pretty soon there will be a flyer. Probably at some point today will be a flyer out we're accepting donations for it, because obviously to set up an event of this magnitude is not free. and it costs a lot of money, but we're doing it for a phenomenal cause, to get these, people that can't afford to be insured or just aren't insured, get free health care and free health insurance. So yeah, September 6th, please show up if you can, and we look forward to seeing everybody there. It's going to be a great time, and I cannot wait. But yeah, it's a ton of work right now, and we're all chipping in to help Drew, because he's overwhelmed, to say the least. But it is one of the biggest, if not biggest, community service events we've ever done as a fraternity, and it is in the second week of school, which is insanity.
And that meant it's so much time over the summer doing this, because by the time that the rest of the chapter was informed on this, I believe it was about July 20th or so. So I can't even imagine when he actually got started on that work, but that was priority number one for him, I imagine, when he walked in the door, and just countless hours of thinking about it, of how you're going to pull that off, and then actually executing it. Because we're talking everybody from local law enforcement involved to businesses nearby. I mean, getting flyers distributed. It is a all hands on deck type of effort. But one of the things that impressed me, and I don't want to steal his thunder because he's going to be on the show next week, so we're going to be rehashing this similar discussion. But one of the things that impresses me is just, you've said it before, that there were a lot of times throughout the process where you've asked if he needed help with anything, and a lot of the questions you were asking, he had answers for right away. He had already done it.
Yeah.
So just phenomenal work overall by our Grand Scribe Drew, and again, that's just, it goes to speak so much about his character. And just for the record, I think the weather is going to be quite nice on September 6th. So we're looking a little early, obviously, for the forecast, but right now it's so far so good. So I'm very excited for that and everything the chapter's got in store. Of course, it is a busy time just because our rush week is coming up in the third week of the semester. Of course, our chapter, we have prioritized making videos for it, so we got a whole production for that coming up. Very exciting time for to be in Kappa Sigma, of course, at this moment. But just overall, what are some basic goals? I'd say. I mean, we talked a lot about the professionalism and things such as looking for like diversified recruitment processes, things like that. What are some of these basic goals that you've got for our chapter in this upcoming year?
For Rush?
For anything, for overall.
I mean, it's so broad, and I've already said it today on the show, but dominance. Dominance is everything. It's what I've been preaching to the guys since I got on EC, became treasurer, and since, I became president, it's not stopped. I want to be the best in every single thing that we do. So whether that's academics, we preach that every single day. School comes first, dominance in that. Dominance in community service, hence the Fun Run for Health, and why we're putting so much time towards such a phenomenal cause. Dominance in military heroes proceeds, dominance in rush efforts. It's just, we want to be the best in every single thing we do, and obviously that's extremely broad, but when you break it down, we have different goals for each thing. But just whatever we can do, and whatever I can do, I tell my guys this all the time, whatever I can do to help you be the best at your position is going to make the fraternity be the best at everything that we do.
And it starts, I think, overall with having the actual resources to do it, and the best way to get resources is to get people. I mean, we are dominant right now because we've done an excellent job recruiting. We are dominant because I think we do have a different philosophy than a lot of other chapters on campus do, and it's not to criticize or anything like that, but I think it's more praise for us as far as numbers don't lie. I mean, at the end of the day, over 50 active brothers, that's an impressive achievement for our chapter. So to be able to ride those coattails through this year, and we've talked about it before last year, we do have a challenge when it comes to recruiting because we have a lot of people going out the door, but we have the resources for it now because we are so big. And again, the word dominance, I love hearing that multiple times. You've said it already today, but I'm very excited for what this chapter's got. And we'll switch over, I think, at the half hour, and I'll let Andrew kind of end the show off, so he'll carry it in. But I always, and you know this, every time I always ask guests what questions they got for us. What question do you have for me for what's coming up this senior year?
Yeah, we pretty much just kind of touched on it a little, but what are you most excited to see the chapter do this year? Like, out of everything, what do you look forward to the most? What do you think that we can see the chapter do?
Well, Fun Run for Health, I think, is probably the most excited I've ever been for any event that our chapter has ever done. Just plain and simple. I think the cause is noble, and I just think the concept of it makes a lot of sense intuitively. And I think no matter how Saturday goes, I think it has still been a phenomenal achievement, just the fact that the effort that it's been. And, of course, the public relations projects, anything like that, I've always enjoyed. The video. The video that's going to be a huge production effort. Real excited for that. But overall, I mean, I just think, I kind of felt this way last year too, especially as we were thinking about who our next officers were going to be. Is I'm so excited to see who steps up because, we didn't even know who Drew Williams and Owen Frederick were at this time last year, and they're on our executive board. And I don't mean to predict anything, but it wouldn't be an unrealistic thing to see them become president of our chapter within a year. Alex Staub, he's now the vice president of our chapter. He was very involved, very active with us, but wasn't on the executive board last year at all, and he's now vice president. He's number 2. And I'm so excited to see where this goes, who we leave behind, and also who we get in the door. What does the class of 2029 look like? What do our sophomores look like this year, or whoever else joins our chapter? So it's a really exciting thing, and the bigger we get, the more impressive things we get to do with it. And in my opinion, it happens by sticking true to what we've done so far and always sticking with it. And my favorite quote that I've ever heard from Don Emiston. It was Founder Day 2024, and at the time we had, I think, 42 was the number. I think at the end, once the Spring 24 class got in, and before the graduating class of Spring 24 got out. I think it was in the 40s. But regardless of what the number was, I mean, Don hit the nail on the head that day when he was talking to us, and he said, you can't just taste quantity, but when you get quality will come next because you will have that respect. So that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see how we grow as a chapter. I think it's going to be a very successful year, but of course, the 2 big events that are coming up, it is I said it in August earlier when we had our summer meeting, is a PR-heavy beginning to the semester. It is an external communications type of start, and I'm very excited to be a part of it and help however I can. But obviously, Luke, thank you for everything that you do to support our chapter, and of course, I will be transitioning in here to Andrew here in just a second. Again, you've been an outstanding president so far, and I can't wait to see how you overcome the challenges that are going to happen next and everything else that's about to happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, and we'll be back in just a moment, and Andrew will help take over the conversation from here on Greek Speak. You're listening to it on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University.
The most public address announcement I've ever heard. I give mad applause to that. You always just have the voice, Luke. You just always have the voice. But yes, this is the day that I've been looking forward to for a long, long time. I was able to experiment this summer and, speak with multiple guests, 3 actually, and then I got a little bit busy. I guess I'll start off with that. My summer was a little bit different compared to yours. For my summer, I was a full-time warehouse worker. I was actually an equipment operator at the Ulta Distribution Center down in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. That was a really fun experience. Really taught me some responsibility and, taught me how to use machinery and stuff like that. And I was on an order picker, so I was going up and down. I wore a harness every day. Definitely wasn't the most comfortable thing, so to speak, but, it definitely taught me a lot. And, every day we would get a score at the end of, how many picks we had an hour. So, every day I would set myself a new goal of, this is what I want today. And I kind of connect that to my life just in general, whether it's, in the fraternity or at school in general. I also was an intern at the Pennsylvania Bar Association in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That was a great experience. At the end, I kind of got really, really busy, and that kind of tailed off at the end. But at the beginning, I was very, very involved. I actually helped them create their Mingle Monday, which is a post every week that goes on Instagram, and it either has their president, their executive director, or their, the next step down. And it's just simple questions of what's your favorite TV show or something like that. And it's seen record numbers for their program, And, I'm so happy that, just a little idea that I had. And I give a lot of shout out to Shippensburg alumni, Morgan Barr. It was mainly her idea that she had in a meeting. And I was like, we should make this an Instagram reel. And it's really taken off from there. But I just want to express my gratitude for Amanda and Stephanie. Thank you guys. But the last thing I did, probably my favorite, is I began as a communications intern for the Kappa Sigma fraternity back in January. It was a really fun experience. It went from January to July, so kind of going up to our grand conclave. My responsibility before the conclave was to kind of work on a bunch of minor projects. We have a weekend in March called Stephen Alonzo Jackson Weekend of Giving. Stephen Alonzo Jackson is one of our most famous alumni and really is given credit as the heart and soul of the fraternity. But that's a weekend where, people will give back and, will go towards scholarships in the endowment fund. So I got to work on that, which was a lot of fun. Definitely stressful as I was working on chapter pages for about 100 chapters. That wasn't fun, but, it taught me how to reach out to people and, kind of what to do when people don't respond. And then from there, I shifted into another, really started working on video production. And this is where I want to shout out Josh Lee, who is our communications commissioner. Josh really, saw something in me. Man, I've heard that line before, but not to me. But what I was saying is, he just gave me a chance to really express myself in a creative way. And that was just a lot of fun. And, it was really, it was a really cool feeling seeing videos and packages that I put together get shown at the Grand Conclave in front of 1,200 people. So, Luke, as we were talking, you kind of talked a little bit about the Grand Conclave, but what would you say is the most rewarding thing that you got from this year's conclave? And I know that you and I have a little bit of experience because, obviously we were on the executive committee last year. We went to the leadership conference in New Orleans, Louisiana. But they're completely different conferences, and that's one thing that I learned. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, so, to the most rewarding thing from either of them, it's a little different, like you said, because the leadership conference focuses more on leadership development, getting you ready for your position, whereas the Grand Conclave focuses more on, conducting business within the fraternity. So they're vastly different. However, I think that you can draw similar things from both of them, and that is networking and connecting with brothers all around the country, and parts of Canada too. But that part just because you can sit in a room and get training for an hour about how to be the best treasurer or president that you can be, but talking to other fraternity brothers from Kappa Sigmas from around the country and seeing what they do, seeing how they manage conflict, seeing how they prepare their systems, seeing how they run chapter meetings, that is what is the most beneficial to me. Because I've sat in a multitude of these trainings and I've heard it all, but I have not heard from, a brother in California and what his chapter does. So that part is always the most beneficial to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And, I feel that how they structure your schedule, they give you a lot of time to be able to interact with different chapters. For an example, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings. I need a break from there. That's all I'm going to say. But, went to Buffalo Wild Wings with the Kutztown chapter, and then I think it was the University of Calgary. But they're not a chapter. They're a colony. It's really cool to hear.
It was in Calgary.
Well, I know that I spoke to the University of Calgary.
Somewhere in Connecticut. Hartford,
Connecticut. But they were definitely a colony, though. But
yeah.
It's really cool hearing colonies' experiences as, they are going to be known as the guys in 20 years of, they're the ones that started this.
Yeah.
And that's just so cool. And yes, they go through a lot of bad times where they're self-doubt starts to creep up because it's is this worth it? That's something I spoke to TJ about last semester. Is it worth it? And it's really hard. And especially with this generation and mental health being one myself that struggled with mental health, like, it's a really hard battle that you have with yourself of, like, you wake up every day and you're like, well, we're kind of progressing, but we're kind of not. But it's definitely really cool to see what they're doing. I mean, I want to shout out Penn State University, who had, I believe, 103 new members. Something crazy like that. I mean, that's just absolutely bonkers, so to speak. But that's definitely my favorite experience, is being able to interact with the different undergrads. One thing that I got to learn while doing video packages is there was a school down in Texas. It was a Kappa Sigma chapter, and then I think it was a Teak chapter. They partnered together for a military appreciation football game, but they played each other. Yeah. So, like, they had custom Kappa Sigma jerseys, helmets, and then same with Teak. And all of the proceedings, all of that all went to, the respective charities. One for Kappa Sigma being military heroes. I just thought that was really cool, and, like, being able to review the footage, like, it looked like the guys were just having so much fun. Yeah, that's awesome. There was another chapter that did I think it was a fun run, actually, for Patriot Day. That was a lot of fun, and they involved all the different organizations, it didn't matter whether it was a fraternity or a sorority. Everyone came together and, recognized each other as Americans and, on a great day called Patriots Day. But, as we've taken from there, we've come about 2 months from the conference, what did you take from that conference that, you wanted to bring back home and, really install into, your respective exact members, myself being one, but just the chapter as a whole? And as you were saying the word dominate, but, like, what would you say is one thing that you took from that conference that you're like, that's a good idea, let me do that?
I don't know if it was necessarily a tweak that I took from the conference, but something that really lit a fire under me was seeing the determination amongst the entire Kappa Sigma fraternity, and that is what I brought back. Making sure that, listen, like, if you guys don't want to be the absolute best and you are not determined to do whatever it takes, then, let's figure it out. We'll get somebody else in here. So determination's everything, and just seeing every Kappa Sigma want to dominate and want to be the best is really what did it for me. I came home and we have not stopped working. It is relentless. That's another thing. We are constantly relentless, and we don't stop. We just keep going until we get what we want, and I am not satisfied yet, so we're going to keep going. I don't know if that really answered your question.
No, I think that's a great answer to the question. I
don't think I picked, like, a material thing to tweak. It was more just a mindset tweak that I think we needed, because everybody gets complacent over the summer. But it's just constant reminders that we can't stop. We just got to keep going.
I just really like hearing, like, the success stories of, like, multiple chapters that, let's say they had their smallest new member class in years, and then all of a sudden they blow their record out of the water, or, let's say they were a middle of the pack, fraternity, and then all of a sudden they are just skies above everyone else. And, it's really interesting to meet with these exact members and be like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
What did you do? And, I give a lot of credit to CJ Pena. He was a guest on the show over the summer. He was the Grand Master for the Angelo State chapter. I believe now he is the current Grand Master of Ceremonies, the position that I hold. I talked to CJ, and CJ talked about how when he came in, they were kind of just there. They were like, they showed up the things, they did that, and then he was like, he wanted to be the change. And, I really see that in myself and you, Luke, being the two older guys on the executive committee, being the ones that want to make the change. Like, yeah, we had a great year last year, but, we've went right to work and, like, all right, how can we make it better? Like, yeah, I'll be the first to tell you, I made plenty of mistakes my first term. And, like, there was so many times that, like, it was a lot of learning, a lot of learning curves for me, because, like, being a leader of 50 other individuals, 50 other individuals that are all your friends, it's very, very hard. And, being the bad guy in some situations, that was something I didn't do my first time. I was kind of someone that, like, I was considered the nice guy out of the group. people would try to go through me. And, that's something I really took this summer to really evaluate myself. And I give a lot of credit to my internship because I was able to speak with many people. Josh is a great guy. He went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Really long way from here, but, he shared a really successful story there. And, just kind of hearing their personal stories and stuff, it's really, like, motivated me to, be where we are. But, Luke Rainey touched on it earlier. Obviously, next week's going to be really focused on the fun run, but the following week is arguably my favorite time of the year. Some people may say Christmas is their favorite time or their birthday. Mine's Rush Week.
Rush Week.
Rush never ends. And I've been preaching that ever since I've been a member of this organization. And so what would you say is your most excited thing about Rush? Because, we only got 2 more things of these things and, 2 more Rush seasons, 2 more Rush weeks. So what are we looking at? What are you thinking going into it? Because, Luke Rainey really hit the hammer on the nail. We got to be very, very strategic on how we do things because, in hindsight, we have 25 guys graduating next year. And, that's one of the biggest graduating classes we've had in probably a decade. And so, like, what are your thoughts going into it? What are you going to do to really motivate motivate the rest of the chapter? Obviously, I'm in charge of Rush, but you're my boss. What are you going to do to me to motivate them?
I'll say it time and time again, but never get complacent. We're never finished. Kind of trying to... Oh, I'll wait to say that. But, yeah, it never stops, and we can never get complacent, because when you get complacent and you get comfortable, the chapter will crumble, because it's college. You're here for 4 years, typically. Here for 4 years. So people come in and people come out. It's not a steady 10-year thing. So you have to constantly recruit. You can never get comfortable because if you do get comfortable, you can't have a bad semester. You can't. We have gotten to the point where we can have a bad semester, but we won't let that happen because we are so relentless and we want to be the best. So we keep pushing. And constantly reminding that down the hierarchy there to get you to understand that, which you've understood that from the beginning. So that makes my job super easy. But then making sure that everybody underneath you acknowledges that and that they're all doing their work to make sure that this rush is a success. And then, letting them give this privilege of being a Kappa Sigma and experiencing everything that we've got to experience with this phenomenal brotherhood is a privilege to whoever wants it on this campus who earns it. But yeah, Rush Week is a once. It doesn't come around very often. We have to hit it every single semester. So never stopping, never being satisfied. Relentless, and we'll just see what happens. But we're working tirelessly on everything else, and Rush Week is not going to get pushed to the end. It's going to be right at the top of my priority.
Yeah, it always has to be, and I always stress this, like, it really does never end. It's something that is very, very important. It's something that keeps your organization afloat at all times. As soon as one Rush Week's over, I'm already on my guys like, all right, what's the next, what's the list, the interest looking like for next semester? It never ends. And yeah, it can drive you nuts. And there's definitely some times where I've, really just needed some time to just relax for a second. And there's some times where I've probably had some crash outs and, but I think it works. And, this is something that you've always said, and I respect this so much out of you, is you really, call yourself successful because of the stress that you have in your life. You don't know what you would be without stress.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something really, really important to think about.
It's healthy stress, I will say.
We're going to turn over some questions for you. But again, you are listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. Ready. Luke, So obviously, I talked about you asking me some questions. Let's say 1 to 2 as we're getting ready to wrap up here. Anything you want.
So, I mean, I'll ask you, and you've talked a lot about Rush Week, so let's do besides that. What do you, we'll make it an executive board thing. What are you most excited for about the e-board that we currently serve on? What are you most excited to see out of it?
Well, I think we have 5 very hungry individuals, people that are, never satisfied, people that want to constantly outdo themselves. And the one thing that I will say about this exec board that, may not have been the best from last exec board is I think each and all 5 of us have some type of connection within our campus. You're on IFC. Alex is, Alex does a lot of things. Recently gotten involved with the Brothers Club. And then obviously he's a student ambassador and stuff like that. And then Alex has just been phenomenal. He was one of the first people that really, one of the student ambassadors that first really came out. Drew, he's actually just getting involved as a employee for the exercise science department. And then what is Freddie? I think he's the head of the investment club. Owen Frederick, that's one of my favorite people, favorite persons on this planet, straight up. Freddie will never, there's never a dull moment with Freddie, so to speak.
Never.
I always make jokes. He reminds me of a human version of Scooby-Doo. It's the truth. And I don't mean that in any bad way. He's just always like, if I need a laugh, he's there.
He's hilarious.
If he's going to tell me, like, he'll just say a joke, and I'm like, wow, that was really funny. Like, how did you think of that? Freddie actually served as the first ever motivational chair within our organization, and Luke Rainey is actually the second motivational chair, and that's something that we added to, loosen things up at our chapter meetings, have a little bit of fun, but, he means everything he says, and, a lot of the time he was thinking of that stuff on the spot, but again, getting back to the question, I think we're really working well as a team. I think we all are hungry. We all want to be the best. And, I think we're all willing to help each other. I mean, I may not know too much about money, but, like, if Freddie needs help or needs suggestions, I'll be the first to give it to him.
Yeah.
And the same thing for you and Alex and Drew. And I think that's where I've gotten better in my time away, is really just kind of taking a step back from the day-to-day operations and really being like a advisor-esque, like, I can help you here, I can help you there. But yeah, I would definitely just say, like, the teamwork and the camaraderie. Wow, I think that came out right, of our team.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good point. I think I'll briefly answer this question. I think what most excites me about our executive board is that each person, and I'll exclude myself, I'm not talking about myself when I say this, but each person in their position is overqualified almost. Like, every person on our executive board has done their job and so much more, and that's before they even got in the position. I'm excited to push the boundaries and see what we can accomplish, because my goodness, are they ready to go. Like Freddie, he's been a treasurer for like 14 clubs already. Willie, or Drew Williams, is the most professional person I've ever met, and he's like 19 years old. So perfect communications, grand scribe, secretary kind of guy. Yeah. And then, Alex has all these connections, which is phenomenal for a vice president to have. And then you've already served in the position. You're a mastermind of Rush, and I know people will make fun of me for saying that, but you are. So I'm just excited to see what we can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. You got anything else, Luke, or you ready to wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good.
Alrighty. Well, thank you guys for listening to the first episode of, I don't know what we're calling it. I don't know if we're going to call it Season 3, Episode 4, Season 3, Part B. Just wait and see our social media on what we decide to call it. But, again, we'll be back next week at 5 p.m. A little bit of a later time. I missed our 10 a.m. calls. But our guest next week will be Drew Williams. So, again, Thank you guys for listening to Greek Speak on WSYC on 88.7 FM from Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, and have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.